Yo, what's up, guys? Back at it here with more VGC stuff. No, no one has been caught cheating recently, or as far as I know, or what Reddit knows, but I guess I'm going to talk about more of what's on my mind. And based on my previous video, it seems like a lot of people have been kind of split. Hey, you should be playing Pokemon the right way. Hey, you know what? Pokemon should allow some sort of genning in tournaments because their system doesn't really work to the fullest extent. I don't disagree with any of those opinions whatsoever, but there tends to be a really big issue when it comes to VGC. Now, I've mentioned this plenty of times already. If you're going to compete in VGC, do not cheat. As a matter of fact, stop cheating. Because one, you're probably not going to do it right. And two, the risk chances of you getting caught just keeps going higher and higher as you go into the higher ladder of VGC, whether it's regionals, nationals, especially what happened in Worlds where a lot of players were caught. The risk chances just gonna keeps going higher and higher and higher to the point that now you're just gonna be super paranoid. And obviously, when you're in a tournament and you're in day two or in the final day, you're not gonna have time to get another Pokemon legitimately. And then you gotta EV train it. You gotta give it the right moves. Maybe you need PP ups or PP maxes. You're just not gonna have the time. The problem with VGC, I guess, from the perspective of all the players, is that it's an elephant in the room. It's a pretty open secret that players do cheat. Let's keep it a buck. Do you really think of the hundreds and potentially thousands of players that compete in regionals, nationals, worlds every year, do you really think their team is 100% legitimate? Yes and no. I do personally believe that based on the circumstantial evidence that has been given by literally people who have developed PK Hex and literally by the legality checkers that Pokemon Company have, brought forth into these tournaments, people more or less have done some sort of modifying Pokemon. Any of those modifications could be EVs, IVs, origin of the games, whether or not they have a home tracker or whether they have egg moves, anything. Anything is possible when it comes to that kind of stuff. And just reading back of the comments and looking at certain threads, I think people are just conflicted. And people should just realize that maybe if you stop cheating, you won't get caught. Now, here's the thing. I understand completely that in order for you to have a super meta relevant team of 6 Pokemon, it's going to take a while to grind. First and foremost, I'm pretty sure in a competitive standpoint, Pokemon is one of the only games, or one of the only franchises that you need to have multiple Pokemon games to even have a meta competitive team. Say, for example, you need Urshifu. Well, currently we're in Generation 9. Urshifu isn't available in Scarlet and Violet. You have to buy Sword and Shield DLC. Enamorus, another meta relevant Pokemon, you need to have Pokemon Legends Arceus and transfer it to Pokemon Home. And then from Pokemon Home, you transfer it into Scarlet and Violet. And then obviously, when you transfer those Pokemon, a lot of stuff gets mixed up. Move sets. I believe in Legends Arceus, the way IVs and EVs work, that also gets changes up as well. So that's more of a kind of a slight headache to deal with. At the very least, in Generation 9, in order to get competitive Pokemon, it's more accessible than it has ever been. You can change abilities. You still have the mints from Generation 8. You can change natures. You can actually add egg moves without breeding an actual Pokemon from it. So and so. That's great. That's awesome. It's a good thing that the Pokemon Company wants to make, more they want to make people join VGC by allowing it to be more accessible. I truly believe the ultimate like end all be all to prevent cheating and to make more accessibility or the highest peak of accessibility is two things. Reintroduce mythical or legendary Pokemon from different generations into Scarlet and Violet via a DLC, a cheap DLC patch, or just introduce like a Pal Park or some sort in Scarlet and Violet, and have an item. I believe someone mentioned in one of these threads like a rusty bottle cap that allows you to modify Pokemon IVs. Not just increase them, but decrease them as well. Because for you to have a Trick Room team VGC, you need to have zero speed. How can you get zero speed? It's a freaking headache. And it's definitely not viable with legendary Pokemon because, IVs are already predetermined. If they can fix those two issues, I guarantee you cheating is going to drop. Not to, completely down to zero, but it's definitely going to drop dramatically to the point that you ain't got to worry about the elephant in the room anymore. Now, of course, in the history of VGC, there have been some questionable disqualifications, whether it's people protesting that the game and the way Pokemon Company's been running their stuff isn't that great. There's always going to be those extingent circumstances. How do people get their Pokemon? Well, like I mentioned, there's only two ways you can do it. It's either doing it legitimately or using a third-party software, aka PKX. Now, here's the thing. If you are relying on other people to make a team for you, chances are they're going to throw you under the bus, figuratively, because you don't know where this Pokemon came from. Your friend's going to say, well, I got these Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet or Sword and Shield. Are you sure? Just because you have an Urshifu in your team, make sure you check or have a legitimate source check that this Pokemon actually came from its respective game. You cannot gen an Urshifu in Scarlet and Violet. Why? Because it didn't come from Scarlet and Violet. It came from Sword and Shield originally. The home tracker issue. Worlds. Look, if you looked at what happened at Worlds and you still think that you should be doing this kind of stuff without even double, triple checking your work or making sure everything is legitimate, I don't think you should be playing VGC. You should just stop cheating. It's a very harsh opinion that I have, but if you're going to continue to get caught cheating over and over again, why are you even in VGC in the first place? What is the point of you playing in VGC? Some of you are going to get mad about that, but think about it for a second. Think about of all the people who have been caught cheating, all because of some missed out details. If you're really going to do something like this, like, I'm not encouraging you to, cheat in VGC because, again, the risk factor becomes so astronomically huge over time. But you got to be extremely detailed. You got to make sure your Pokemon are perfect and ready to go. You can't just slap on a Pokemon on your team, do some, little tweaks here and there in PKHex and assume everything's okay. That's why there's a auto legality checker there. That's why there's a bunch of tabs that you got to make sure everything fits perfectly. That way it can avoid the checks. If you have clones or multiple Pokemon that shouldn't be in your boxes, get rid of it. Do not give the judges or don't give the head of the tournaments any sort of reasonable suspicion, just like the player that was disqualified in Brazil. Just stop cheating. If you understand what I'm trying to tell you, then good for you. If you don't, I'm not saying here, oh, you have to have a natural team that takes about 1,000 hours and just for you to compete in a regional tournament. The team doesn't make the player. And what I mean by that is, obviously, the player's skills, it doesn't really correlate with the team that you have, because you can have a team that is bred and completely naturally trained all the way through versus somebody who created on PKHex. If those same two teams compete, it's the player with the best skills and the best knowledge of the game that's going to win, more so. Again, just stop cheating. If you're going to do it, I ain't stopping you, but don't be an idiot and expect everything is not going to be uncovered, because eventually it will, especially if you did a very sloppy job in creating a team via PKHex. You can save thousands of hours of you know, not breeding your Pokemon or catching Pokemon by simply, genning your team. But if you get caught, you still wasted your time regardless. Anyways, guys, it's your boy Franklin signing out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.